Welcome to Community Cop. My name is, I'm sorry, we have a little bit of an echo. Okay, all right. Welcome to Community Cop. My name is Julian Harper, one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, and I'm glad to be back. I know I've been away for a while, but I miss my family, and I'm glad to see you guys. I'm here with my two co-hosts. First of all, Noah Alita.
Peace. Second
of all, Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
And as customary, you guys know that this is a live program. In about 25 minutes, you guys will have an opportunity to call in. There'll be a number listed on the screen, and as usual, we love to hear from you guys, so you guys call in. As normal, we're going to go with our historical piece, who'll be presented by our in-house historian, Michael Graves. In 1906, the Brownsville, Texas incident, Mike?
Yeah, the Brownsville, Texas incident was a situation in Brownsville, Texas, where two white women were allegedly raped by two black men. Consequently, during that, what happened was in that there was gunfire because one was a police officer, a white police officer, was shot but not killed, was wounded, and the other one, the bartender, a white bartender, was shot, and they turned around and blamed it on black soldiers from the 25th Division. Many were members of the Buffalo Soldiers, which is the 25th as well as the 9th and 10th, so the 10th specifically. So what happened was the commanding officers of Fort Drum said it was not black soldiers that did it, but the town residents, they resented the fact that a black division was in their town. So they took issue in Brownsville, Texas, Fort Brown. So they took issue with it and just blamed that incident on black soldiers, even though the white commanding officers all said that they didn't do it, that everybody was present and accounted for in their barracks. So what it led to ultimately, it led to Theodore Roosevelt, who was the president at the time. After an Army investigation, he discharged 167 black men with dishonor. And so they lost their pensions, they lost the opportunity to have a federal civil service jobs, and ultimately they just had to go through life with that until, of course, because if they had really did it, they would have been criminally charged, but they weren't criminally charged, and the Army knew, but they just wanted to satisfy the residents of Brownsville, Texas. So in 1972, literally we're talking about 60-something years later, 66 years later, under Richard Nixon, they exonerated and gave them all their honors back. Only one person was alive from that 167 who were dishonored and discharged from the Army, and so he got full benefits and pension and all that back. And so with respect to, if we want to go to the Springfield one, in the Springfield incident in 1908, allegedly in that one, they thought that two white women were actually, that's the one with the two white women were raped, and so what happened was they blamed it on two black men. The two black men were arrested, and the sheriff, fearing that the lynch mob was going to come in and remove them from the jail, which has happened in the past, he secretly moved them out of the city. So a white mob went looking for them, and that white mob was 5,000 strong, which they admit, 5,000 strong. So it could have been even worse. So they went and just killed every black person in sight for a 3-day period, from the 14th through the 16th of August. Every black person they could find, they killed. And this is what led to whites who were horrified at that incident, went to the Niagara movement, which later became NAACP. So the NAACP actually was founded on the fact that a mob of 5,000 white people killed every black person they could find in Springfield, Illinois, which is where Abraham Lincoln is from, if you're familiar with that part of history.
And unfortunately, we're running out of time. And you want something?
Yeah, I just want to ask Michael, because, I mean, are you talking about every week? Are you talking about the same incident, the same rise? Because, hold on a second, brother, because I'm going to have to start looking at these books. It can't be that many riots. It seems like every week, every week of the month of all the year, there's some horrific riot.
Brother, if I wanted to, every community cop show, I can mention a massacre that correlates with that week. That's how bad it was. If I really want to do that, if I really want to just make it sound like a broken record, every week we come here, I could tell you this week of August, this week in December, this week in November, I could just tell you where the bodies were buried at. So this sounds like a continuous theme, which it is, but it's all, but we'll just cut it short, only respect to say something about Marcus Garvey. It's his birthday.
Right. I just wanted to say that when Frederick Douglass said that America has a history that would embarrass a nation of savages, this is what we're talking about, and this is what he was referring to.
And go ahead, Mike. I know you're talking about
Marcus Garvey. Y'all could take it. I've said enough.
Oh, Marcus Garvey was one of the greatest organizers, greatest black nationalists, I guess in this country. When you look at a time, excuse me, where there was a lack of television and lack of radio, he was still able to amass millions of African Americans throughout the country, throughout the Caribbean, and some on the continent. He was the one who coined the phrase "Africa for the Africans,"
at home
and abroad. But I know in his book he said he'll never say he wants all black Africans, all blacks to go back to Africa, because he said some is no good here and they won't be any good over there. I don't know if it was him or Elijah Muhammad, but he should always be remembered. He should be taught in our schools. If you're a student of organization or organizing, no, in the world you shouldn't study Marcus Garvey, his tactics, and the manner by which he was successful. But he's excluded from the history book in this country. Our students and students in general know very little about his successes. And he was, as every African leader that came into this country, he was targeted by the American government, by the intelligence agency for his destruction. America has destroyed, bar none, every black leader, every black organization. The American government and the American people and law enforcement agencies throughout the country have worked to destroy every single black leader that had ever rose up in this country. And we ought to acknowledge that as well.
And I'll just say very briefly about Marcus Garvey. With all the great things that Noel said about him, one of our greatest scholars, W.E. Du Bois, was on the warpath to destroy them and participated with the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and intelligence agencies, the military intelligence division, all of them, to bring down Marcus Garvey. And I just want to give you a few things for the record. He said Marcus Garvey was the most dangerous Negro in America, the most dangerous enemy of the Negro in America and the world. He is either a lunatic or a traitor, and can be considered a person whose program about complete separation is a capitulation to white supremacy. And he feared that all the gains made by the NAACP would be destroyed because of Marcus Garvey. And that's why they went full throttle against him.
And one of the things I think is important, and I know Noel touched on it, is that, as we study the works of Marcus Garvey and the successes that he had, we also have to study what was the cause of his failure and his demise. And as Noel stated, that was the attack by this government and by white supremacists who did not want to see the success of Marcus Garvey and the success of African people.
And when they talk about Marcus Garvey being the most dangerous, he was a nonviolent individual. He just simply said, we shouldn't beg white folks for nothing. Let's build it ourselves. He said, they have an army, we need an army. They have businesses, we should have businesses. Why should we beg them and protest their stores and march against their stores to hire us? Let's hire our own selves. That was his philosophy. But as is customary, United States Intelligence Agency considered Martin Luther King one of the most nonviolent leaders that we had. They considered him dangerous, and this is a mindset of them. Anyone who organized and seek to uplift African Americans, they considered them to be very dangerous. Not because of what they're intended to do in terms of violence or destruction, but the mere attempt to unify and to elevate African American people in the eyes of this government. They're dangerous.
Right. You know, they always attack when blacks are trying to empower themselves. When we try to empower ourselves and deal with issues that are might affecting our community to benefit our community, there's always attack on African leaders. Okay. We're going to start with one of our first topics. Noel, the boycott on the Korean stores, where the black woman, where the sister was assaulted with a stick over some idiotic, nails being done and eyebrows being done, which escalated to something that was just a real physical assault, which necessitated the attacker to be arrested, and unfortunately the sister was arrested as well, which I think was unfair and unjust. You want to talk about that?
Right. Yeah. An update. We touched this. Many of you who watched the program last week know that we touched this story last week, where a sister was a patron of a Korean nail salon. She was dissatisfied with the way her eyebrows was done, so she refused to pay. She paid for nails in her feet, and she was assaulted. All of us seen a horrific assault. The community was so outraged over the mere fact in the manner by which the sister was assaulted that they organized a boycott, which has been successful up to this point. This week, members of of City Council and Yvette Clarke, it was Councilwoman Richards and Yvette Clarke called a meeting, an organization meeting with Asian leaders, Korean and Chinese leaders, and they had a big photo walk to discuss how these issues can be resolved nonviolently. Now, the only one violent was the Asians, if you look at the video. And I'm outraged because, once again, you see our leaders acquiescing to the problems that individuals outside of our community, in this particular case, the Asian community, has. They didn't come out against the Asians, or they didn't call for these meetings when the Asian officer murdered a black man in the housing projects, and when he was prosecuted, the Asian community organized, and they didn't want him to do any jail time. There was no call
Peter
for
Liang.
Peter Liang. There was no discussion from these black leaders to meet with Asians to see how we can come up with a solution. A topic we may touch on later on as it talks about the diversity of these elite schools that are predominantly Asian and white. When we talk about diversification for that, they never call for the Asian leaders, or the Asian leaders never call for the black leaders to say, let's sit down and see how we can work this out to diversify. Their interest is only their interest. And I'm outraged that, once again, so-called black elected officials, which are really one of the greatest enemies of our community by what they do and what they don't do, is acquiescing to a community outside of ours, calling for some kind of meeting of the minds. There should be no meeting of the minds. They should have went to that community, that Asian community, to that store, said they have to close, they have to get out of our community, because anyone who assaults an unarmed patron, in this particular case, a black female, in the manner by which they did, do not deserve to do business in our community. But I know, without being there, that is not the message that they gave. They want let's forget about it and let's see how we can move forward. No, sir. Continue to protest.
Right.
Well, certainly, I don't consider Yvette Clarke a leader of black people. She's an elected official. She's selected. She passes all the smell tests that white people have given us so far. They like quiet Democrats who collect a paycheck and do nothing for black people. She was a do-nothing person. Her mother was a do-nothing person. So they have never done anything for black people. And certainly I was there, several times I went by there. And yesterday I went by there, and so many people asked me about Eric Adams that I, just took pictures of some of the things saying, "Where are you, Borough President Eric Adams?" And I told them to call his office. I said, if you want to speak to him, call his office. They asked me because of his former affiliation with 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I said, Eric is not a member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement. If you want to speak to him, you have to call him. We can't speak for him. He has to speak for himself. Because they kept asking me, why was he going out there to Bay Ridge, Sheepshead Bay area with respect to vandalism that had occurred with respect to Asians' businesses that were, vandalized. And I said, said that he would not come into East Flatbush, a black community, when a black grandmother and a black granddaughter was beaten by Asians.
On video.
And I said, you have to ask him. I said, I am not in a position to speak for him, nor would I. certainly those questions are not foreign to me because I thought of it also. If you want me to be rather candid with you, I thought of that also. I thought it was disgraceful that Eric did not show up and address the situation head on. But Eric has said that he don't look at color, he looks at issues. And that's ridiculous. Eric knows better. I've known Eric over 30 years, and Eric knows better. So if he don't see color now, when did this Eric, obviously it has to do with him wanting to be mayor, but certainly we are not in agreement. We see color. Eric claims he don't see color. If he feels that's the best way to become mayor, then fine, you can rock with that, but you know better.
The reality is there's a void politically in our community. We cannot depend on, and it's been proven, elected officials to fight the battles that are existing in our community. They have constantly failed us. If it's a soft, very calm issue, then you may hear them speak about it. But when you talk about issues that they believe that it's going to have an adverse effect on their electability, on their position as an elected official, then we see that they are silent. And we have to be very loud when it's time for voting, when it's time to put someone in a position to address the issues that might affect our community. We cannot be silent at that time. Noel, you?
And real quickly, I'll say that, Julian, you bring us a very poignant point that we shouldn't rely on these selected officials to fight our battles, because clearly, the kind of selected officials that we now have lack that ethic, and that commitment to our community. But what we're seeing today is a new animal. Not only are they not defending our community, but they're doing things that counteract, that come against our community. For these selected officials, and mind you, I didn't see, when they took the photo op, I didn't see one member who called for a protest. I didn't see any of them in this particular meeting. They always call for these sessions when it benefits people outside of our community. So whereas we expect a lot of times for them to defend us, and they're not doing that, now they're joining our enemies and involved in activity which is detrimental to some of the things that we're attempting to contract to do. And that's what's so pathetic about this whole thing.
So one of the things that we have to remember, and I know, Mike, you have something you want to say, that these are self-serving elected officials.
Excellent. That's right.
And unfortunately, them serving themselves is a detriment to our community as a whole and as a collective. And if we don't pay attention, and if we allow them to continue to sell out our community, to allow us to be at the base of anything political in this city, we are doing ourselves a disservice. So we have to start a political revolution. We have to remove these people and ensure that they have no place in our community as an elected official or someone that we would look upon to ensure that the issues that are malaffecting us are addressed to our benefit. Michael?
Look, I just have to shoot straight.
Uh-oh.
If this had been white people attacked in that salon by black people,
that's right,
they would all be calling for arrest and vigorous prosecutions of them. That means Yvette Clarke, that means Eric Adams and others will be calling for, demanding that the police arrest everybody involved and make sure they get prosecuted. He'd be calling the district attorney's office to make sure they get hit with maximum charges to the full extent of the law. So for this to be a black grandmother, black granddaughter attacked by agents, their silence is deafening. It's just disgraceful. It's just deplorable to call some meeting. And I heard Eric yesterday on News 12 Brooklyn, where he said he's in contact with the family. He knows full well this is bigger than a family. So to claim you had some contact, some telephone conversation, what have you, that will not suffice. You know better than that. Because you would have been out there. If Jews wanted you someplace, you would have been there for the Jewish community. And you know that.
All right. Only because, do you have something you want to say, Noel?
No, that's it.
Only reason I'm going to go back to you is because I don't want to lose the area that we're in, and I'm going to come to some issues that you want to talk about as well. The update on the New York City diversity program for the elite schools,
right,
which is also along the lines because we was talking about an Asian community who actually benefiting from these programs.
Right. This is a story that we talked about earlier as well. The de Blasio administration is claiming to attempt to diversify some of the elite schools that exist in the city. As we spoke about before, New York City has the most segregated school system in the entire country. And in the elite schools, it's even worse. Well, this was announced on the news today that the Bill de Blasio administration attempts to vamp up a program that was started about 5 years ago called the Discovery Program, which was supposed to be one of the methodologies to integrate these particular schools. This particular program is a summer program. They receive training. They were supposed to look for low-income students, or students who score low, this particular program, and they were supposed to train them and give them the information to pass these entrance exams to this particular school. So this program was supposed to be a segue into these elite schools. It was supposed to be a segue to integrate these particular schools. Lo and behold, today it's on the news that over 80% of those who's graduating from this particular program and making it into these schools are Asian and white. So the millions and millions of dollars that was spent was supposed to be a tool for desegregation. You find out it's just all a ploy, and that goes with all of the ploys, all of the pronouncements, all the investment in these so-called programs, and the millions of dollars that are pumped into these programs that is supposed to bring some resolution, some resolve to our community. It's all a trick. Years down the line, when you look at the results, you see that we're not benefiting. Brothers and sisters, we've been had by these so-called liberals, the myth of these so-called white liberals who come, bring in tricklets and things that are supposed to bring resolve and resolutions. It's only a ploy. It's only a ploy of deception. This is preposterous, and they even talk about expanding it, but retweaking it so that it would be more reflective. 78% of these students that get entrance into these elite schools from this particular program that was designed to help low-income students and students who score low, which everybody automatically assumes is black and Latino, 78% of those, and that's their numbers, it's probably more than 78% of those who left this program and got into these schools is white and Asian. And I think that's preposterous.
Well, when they put some of these programs together, they are intentionally circumventing.
Exactly.
To ensure that they get the results that they want. Now, it's just like with the police department. They will put names out and say, this is a program to benefit whatever class they want to say they benefit, but when it goes into operation, the results are actually in opposition of what they're actually looking for and what they say they're looking for. All right. We'll go to our next topic, and thank you, Noel, for that. Mike, an 11-year-old black child was handcuffed by the police in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes, the young man's, I just want to give you his name. His name is Bernie Borisay. No, that's his mother. Let me just tell you what the situation is. His name is Fatia Joma. What he was participating in a PAL event, Police Athletic League, and he was actually dribbling the ball at the time, and the police officer was trying to get everybody's attention. And he continued dribbling the ball, and after the police officer told him to stop dribbling the ball, he dribbled the ball again, and the police officer cuffed him, put handcuffs on him. An 11-year-old boy handcuffed him like a common criminal just for continuing to dribble when he told him to stop dribbling. You're not much of a man when you have to impose your will on an 11-year-old little boy. Now, if the little boy continued dribbling, you could have asked him to remove himself from the basketball court, or you could have called his mother, who even asked the question, why didn't I get a call right away? If he's not going along with anything your program is doing, call me and I'll take care of it. But they didn't choose to do that. He chose to be a cop on the basketball court and handcuff him, and of course one of the children told another child, who ran and told the mother, and the mother came there and confronted the police officer and asked him why was the child in handcuffs, and he said because he was disrespectful. I mean, this is ridiculous. An 11-year-old child, disrespectful, and you're going to handcuff him to show them you the man. You're not a man. It's a cowardly act, and you would not do that to a white child.
And the responses that we get when we talk about law enforcement, just anything political, all issues that affect our community is so heavy-handed. I mean, how do you explain the response to dealing with a child who refuses to, for whatever term you'd like to use, to obey an order or a suggestion or whatever it is from an adult? The response is handcuff them? I mean, is that what we do? Mike, I just have to ask you this. Is this an anomaly, or is this something that's happened again and again? Has it happened more than once? Is this something that's just, we can look at this as an anomaly?
Brother, look, the 6 or 7-year-old girl in Queens that they handcuffed, they put her in a stairwell as a like it was a prison cell. It was a stairwell with a gate on it. Mm-hmm. So they locked in that for a little while. I mean, these are all things that's only done to black children. These are not things that you do to children, period. So whether it's 6 or 7-year-old, now I got another 11-year-old story, but I think Noel wants to comment on this one.
I'll come
okay. In this other 11-year-old one, you had an 11-year-old girl shopping in Kroger supermarket, and this was in Cincinnati. An off-duty police officer who was working in that store. He suspects she's putting some food in her backpack. He actually pulls out his taser. Now, I don't know why he's carrying his taser off duty, but he pulled out his taser and he tased her, and they had to rush her to the hospital because after he tased her, she's 11 years old, they took her to the hospital for evaluation and observation. Now, the police commissioner in Cincinnati said that their department policy is you can tase a child 7 years or older. So they have a policy in place, I dare say, being here in New York, that will not apply to a 7-year-old child in Cincinnati that's white. That, again, that these are just some black codes that they do to black people. This girl was tased, and of course, after the fact, they dropped all the charges against her because it was just disgraceful that a grown man police officer off duty at that chose to tase her instead of asking her what's in her bag. Disgraceful.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is diabolical, I didn't get to use that word in so long, is not only is police brutality or police criminality a problem in our community, but now we see it happening to younger and younger people, younger kids. Before it was an issue with black males. Then all of a sudden you see the rise and the oppression against black females. Right. Now you see how children are now being attacked by these police officers, and they're given cover by the agency heads. This police commissioner, he condoned what this individual did, and then he said that, well, according to the law, they can tase individuals from 7 and older, 7 years of age and older. So this is her being 11 she right. falls above that, but that wasn't the issue. This particular incident, regardless of how old she was, didn't call for a person being tased. That was the issue. Talking about the age thing was a diversion because, yes, it's on the books. But she wasn't violent. She didn't attack the police officer. And that's something that a lot of the black legislators dropped the ball in when you had officers being issued these tasers. There should have been some kind of legal ramification whereby when these tasers can be used. Now you see officers all over the country. They give an order. If you don't follow order, they tase you. I thought the taser was supposed to be a defensive tool. In this particular incident, regardless of how old she was, yes, she fell above the age of their law, and as you said, if it was a white girl, it would have been used against her. But the issue was, in this particular issue, it did not call for any aggressive police force. Mm-hmm. This was a young child who he assumed was shoplifting, and I think he gave her order. She didn't listen. He tased her. She wasn't violent. She didn't attack him. She didn't present a threat. That is the issue.
Well, why? And Noel, and sorry, Julian, but why would she listen to somebody who just appears to be working in the store?
Exactly.
He had on civilian attire,
right.
And he challenged her. And of course, she's going to walk away. When she turned her back to walk away, he tased her right in her back.
Right.
You know, he didn't have on a uniform, so he didn't have on the uniform of authority where he could speak to any
you're
way
wrong,
he
brother.
wanted
You're
to.
wrong, brother. You're wrong.
Oh, you talking about the white skin?
White skin, brother.
The white skin.
I know
Okay,
you
That's
going
the
with that one.
presumptive
Right.
influence. And I can tell you, well, we don't have time because it's late.
Right.
You know, something that happened with us, that white man downtown.
white skin privilege. Okay.
And you know, it's unfortunate, and this is one thing that I want our listeners and I want our community to understand. With things like this happening, there is a conditioning, and I think it's intentional for the minds of our people to understand that this is acceptable. You know, the abuse initially started with black males being illegally stopped, frisked, and searched, and that became a condition, and it became accepted after a while. Then our sisters have been shot, abused, and physically accosted by law enforcement, and it's become the norm, and it's been accepted. You know, people still oppose it, but it's less of a major issue. There's less of a shock value.
Right.
Now what's happening to our children. So believe you me, they want that inculcated in our minds. They want us to understand and believe that this is acceptable, this is the norm, and this is the response that our people are going to get when they are being addressed by law enforcement. So we really have to open our eyes and pay attention to this, and we have to continuously combat this attack on our community with the fervor that we do initially. We can't allow it to become like a callus. We just become more and more accepting of these attacks on our community. But I know we have calls on the line, and I apologize for going a little long. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment? You're on the line, first caller. Hello?
We can't hear out here.
I know our boards are full, so all right, we may be having a technical issue. Hopefully, we'll have it resolved very shortly. Did you have a further comment, Noel?
No, not a comment on that, but I have another issue we could talk
ahead,
about
brother.
real quick. And when the phone callers come in, just talk and I'll stop. When I talked about selected officials or politicians in our community, you know, the city council last week passed a rezoning issue. And what do we have a call on the line? And what this rezoning do is it destroys the rent stabilization that presently exists in Manhattan North, and it makes it easier for gentrification. And this
Hello?
is
Yeah, okay, go ahead, caller.
We'll
Hello?
talk about that.
Go
if we have
ahead, caller.
space.
You on? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yesterday I watched that Brooklyn 12 News with Eric Adams. So I called in and it said, if you know your party's name, press the prompt, spell his name out. I did that and said, sorry, no one is here. Then I'm watching the show and I noticed people calling in. So I called in again and I listened to it a little longer. You know, if you know the party's name, spell it out. Or wait for the operator and press 0. I pressed 0. It said, we're closed. Leave a message. Then I'm watching the show and people calling in. So I waited until the show closed. Then I called back and lo and behold, Brooklyn News 12. How can I help you? I said, I'd like to speak to Eric Adams. He said the show is over. For the whole hour, they sent it to an answering service. And the people who was calling in, he had to give them a separate number because they gave him all softball questions.
I know, definitely. I watched the show.
Yeah, this calls
I
for
mean,
screen.
Eric Adams must think that the public is stupid.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, thank you for your call, brother. And one of the things that we have to do, you know, we're an intelligent people. And, you know, they attempt to run circles around us. They try to fool us with some of this foolish responses to some of the things that we need addressed. Brother, I'm glad you were a student. You were smart enough to call afterwards and hold these people accountable. But, you know, thanks for your call.
And then share that information with
Okay,
us.
I just want to say one more thing. Kenyatta Taylor, she owns a beauty salon. She gave the sisters a lifetime of free service at her salon.
Wow.
The sisters that were beat up.
Give the address. Give the address.
I don't know the address, but anyone can Google her.
Okay, but
Because she's a rapper.
When you call next week, give the address, because next week we're going to give you some black salons that you can go to. We're going to do it next week. I have a couple of things, but I want the address. I will give you some addresses and phone numbers. It's no sense just banging on what the Koreans are doing disrespectfully in our community.
Right.
We want to give you some proper alternatives. And I'm sure that, Sister Keisha Forrester, the research analyst from Straight Black Pride, she'll give me some information. I'll find some other things. And thanks, Brother Youssef, for you sending what you
Okay,
sent.
well, to all you sisters, buy your own nail kits. If you can't do your nails, get your sisters or your aunts to do your nails.
Or go to at least a black, entrepreneur.
And
Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, brother, for your call. And we really have to stop patronizing people who don't respect us and our community. They don't deserve our money, and we shouldn't give them our money. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
I'm doing calls from home.
Okay, brother. Quick question or comment?
I got a quick comment. I just want to say, how you doing, Mr. Mike? How you doing?
Brother, good to hear from you.
All right. I love your brothers, and
Love you
it's
back.
about time someone did something or said something about these Koreans in our neighborhood. They've been here for years, and they've been milking our neighborhood with immunity.
That's right.
And I just don't know what to say about it. But we have a black president. I guess racism is still good.
That's right.
Thank you, my brothers.
Okay, thank you for the
brother.
call, brother. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Okay, brother.
Hotel, brother. Where you calling from?
Calling from Harlem.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
You hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I want about the.
You breaking
I'm
up.
sorry, we can't really hear you clear. You're breaking up. You're going in and out.
Oh wow, that a little. Yeah, I'm on like.
Nah, if you can call from another phone or from a landline, that would be better. Because right now you're breaking up, and we can't really hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Calling from Manhattan.
Okay,
How
go
you
ahead.
doing?
All right, how you doing, Queen?
First, let me thank you for what y'all do. Thank you for enlightening us on all that's going on. It is well appreciated. It may not sound like when I call in sometimes, but I appreciate everything that y'all highlighting. I want to ask you a question, though. This thing with this, what is this guy? The brother pushed the man shot him. What's it called, this law?
Standing ground.
Castle
Okay.
law.
Standing ground.
Okay. So it's just a question. I'm not trying to make a comparison. Various people say that a sister in a standing ground state, I think her boyfriend was harassing her. She shot up in the air. They
Her husband.
Right, yeah.
her husband.
Yes.
She got buku time. Question. Was the gun legal or was the gun illegal and that's why she went to jail? It's just a question. Or was it a case of racism? Because no one is answering that, but no one is talking. They're just making it look like...
Got your answer, sis.
They just make it look like what?
They're making it look like that is racist. They just picked her, throw her in jail.
No, sis. Let me give you the answer quickly, bro. Sis, it was Marissa Alexander. She got hit with 20 years by Angela Corey, the district attorney, who aggressively has a long history of putting black people in jail, especially black youth. This woman, who was almost 30 years old, she was aggressively prosecuted for warning shots, as Noel has pointed out in the past. It was based on race. It had nothing to do with law. It was based on race.
That's why I'm asking, because I'm a reasonable person. I don't always go by face value when I see what I see, because I'm a reasonable person. And I know that sometimes people leave details out, etc. Instead of saying, well, how the hell can she be thrown in jail for a licensed gun in a state where they have this law, and this guy get away with shooting and killing this man? And one thing I would like to say also, this SH has got this thing. I don't know what it's going to take.
Sis, let me just tell you quickly. Not only
these people can't continue getting away with doing us any kind of way and getting away with it.
Got you, sis. Not only was the gun legal, she had an order of protection against him. He put her in the hospital several times. She fired warning shots because she was tired of being beaten savagely. And for the record, he was a white man. She was married to a white man, and he felt she was his property and that he could beat on her. That's why she was put in jail, because she dared fire warning shots at a white man. She fired the shots in her garage. That's what did it.
All right, Sister, thank you for your call.
Okay. All right, bye.
Thank you, Sister. We appreciate your call. And we always got to remember there's duplicity when we talk about this injustice system when it comes to blacks and whites. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, Kareem from Harlem. How y'all brothers doing?
All right, brother. How you feeling?
Back again, brother Harper.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I got a couple questions, brother. First of all, what do y'all think? I want y'all to give me an analysis on this if you can. What do you think about if Obama was getting away with what Trump is doing as far as being the president, and he's a white nationalist and he's a Nazi? What do you think this country would be doing if he was doing the same thing? My second question is, as far as selective and elective officials, we know better because we see the same thing happening. We see our so-called leaders and officers are being selected by white people. That's why we never get nothing done. And third, last thing is, we need to organize, look back at our history of our struggle, of our people, how they did it, and come together, organize your own research groups in your community, and move forward as one people. That is the only way that we're going to be able to stop all the things that's been happening to our people. It's been doing it for 500 years. So what? That's why people, we intelligent people. Let's come together, put our minds together, and stop it. Y'all keep doing a great job, and may Allah bless y'all. Thank you for your call.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. And certainly,
I always appreciate the love that you show. Community Cop Show. When I see you up in Harlem, brother, nothing but love. I appreciate it. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment. Next caller, you on the air?
I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. Did y'all see the incident on Peacock Mountain yesterday when the little black girl, a pre-teenage black girl, they went upstate to New York to like a camp, and they went into this novelty store, and the woman told them to check them in unless you're chaperone. So the little girl went back outside and got the chaperone from the very small black, and she came inside, and the woman told them, y'all not welcome me, we ain't watching you now. But I remember checking the woman, they said the woman's name, but you look like she was Indian or either Don Puerto Rican. And perhaps being the head family, you're not wanted here. Because on New York One, you might be able to share repeat on it, but check it out. Thank you, guys.
Okay, yeah, you came in a little broken. I really didn't get everything you said. Did you guys?
I didn't get it either.
Okay.
But I will say that with respect to Brother Kareem that called, just for the record, I agree with you that we aren't intelligent people, but we have some baggage with us because we keep on putting people in office that don't love us, that don't care anything for us. There was an old saying that goes way back to Dinkins in them time when they were coming up in the 60s. They used to always ask you, who's your rabbi? So in other words, if you're in public office, if you have political aspirations, black people used to ask other black people, who's your rabbi? Unfortunately, in 2018, we still got rabbis. We still got Jews we answer to. You know full well, had the Koreans dared assault a Jew, they would have hell to pay, and every black elected official in Brooklyn as well as New York City, period, would have been there. There's no excuse for none of them not to have been there. So that's just fluff when they say I'm in contact with the family.
All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Brother Ray, how you doing, Noel? How you doing, Big Mike?
Yes, sir.
Right,
Good to have you back, Julian. Good to have you back, Julian.
Yes, sir. All right, brother. Thank you.
Brother Mike.
Thank you.
Don't forget the draft riots of 1865.
63, brother.
The hanging, 63, I'm sorry. The hanging of black folks from the polls by the Irish.
That's right.
Just plain out and out destruction. Unfortunately, Brother Eric Adams is a clubhouse politician. He belongs to the Jew-man. And people better recognize what's going on with that. But what is most important is that we have them on the ropes if we continue. We have to realize that when they say something about one of us, they mean all of us. Now, yesterday, the Caribbean community did not recognize that they have to stay out of every store over there. And this thing can be successful because they hurting. Nobody's going in them stores, but it has to be kept up. It has to be kept up. They are sweating and looking and lurking. And it's still, because you see, once they control what you eat and know you're going to eat it and you need it, they control you.
Yes, sir.
They control the goods that we eat.
That's right.
They got the corn, the mangoes. Can you imagine 2 lemons for $1? And people was buying them?
That's right.
We have to be truly reprogrammed. But you have to remember, it's a problem where under the immigration rule, they can snatch you up if you cause any kind of disruption. That's why a lot of people don't want to get involved. They rather just keep on going and don't worry about it. Now, how many hair salons did we see in that 1 block radius? About 4. And none of them had a male person in there.
Well, I was out there with you yesterday, Brother Ray, as you know, you well know, and certainly we scoured the entire area to see were people going into Korean businesses, and we saw that the fruit stand, vegetable stand, right next to the salon, their business is going downhill too. We went to other nail shops and salons all along Nostrand Avenue, and they're all suffering. But you're right, the community got to do even more. They got to look at other businesses, and then definitely.
It's not going to be successful if they don't keep it up. We got them on the ropes. I'm telling you,
sir.
we have them on the ropes. We watched it. You know, thank you very much. Good to have you back, Julian. The crew is back. Now
yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Father Lucas.
Not all the way back here, Father Lucas.
All right.
Yes,
okay.
Right. All right.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for the call, brother. Next caller, Buckingham Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Brother Noel, Brother Big Mike, Brother Harper.
Yes, sir.
Please.
So, KOK, y'all been, Brother Harper, you been nice with these selected self-saving officials. I call them 95% of them are house sick.
Brother, try not to use the N-word, brother.
Said they only put in the office of pacifier.
That's right.
Right? Let's go a little further. This is the second time in my lifetime I saw this happen, and Dinkins was in office, and when the family went to protest, he passed the picket line and went in there and started buying food like they did.
That's right.
Like they did someone beat on their sister.
Right.
Right, and also with the school. It was Charles Barron that first brought it to the news. I believe the mayor jumped in there because there's a lady that Eric Adams wanted to run for office, so he came on board after Charles Barron. And the sad thing about it, brother, we made it possible for them to be here. We made it possible for these perpetrators from being here. We making them rich. It's a shame. It's sad because we gotta get to our people. I'm not calling them the dumb, deaf, and blind because we're allowing the field niggas who are the reverends and they're selected ones who control the masses when they let white people come into their environment when they politicking.
Thank you for your call, brother. And you know, one of the things we got to remember is that most communities, they shop in their communities. They spend their money with people who look like them, people who are going to allow this money to regenerate itself or to continue to go around in their community. And unfortunately, we are spending our money with people who don't look like us. And it's not even just the fact they don't look like us. They don't like us. And we tend to ensure that they have these prosperous lives. They take our monies out of our communities and they only benefit themselves. We have to revisit how we deal with folks and how folks deal with us, Noel.
And whether it be, Koreans, Chinese, Arabs, Latinos, they come into our community. Some of them come straight from their countries to do set up shop in our community because our community is one of the most diverse as it extends to businesses. We do business. We support other people's businesses. If they went to certain other communities, they wouldn't get that support. So for them to have this hostile, aggressive, hateful attitude towards our people, they in no way, shape, or form deserve to be able to set foot and take one penny out of our community.
Right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Yes,
All right, Brooklyn. You coming in a little broken. Go ahead.
yes. I want to say, well, I think it'll be a comment. Thank you, brothers. Third time.
Breaking up.
And I want to say
Be the
that
same guy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're having a problem with these some calls. Some calls. I don't know if this is the same brother that called before, but your phone is going in and out. If you're using a cell phone, if you can get to a landline, maybe that will help. But we can't understand your questions or your comments.
No, next caller.
Yeah, you're going in and out. We got to go to the next call. I'm sorry, brother. If you can, try from a different phone. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Were you calling from a quick question or comment? Go ahead.
Brooklyn? Calling from Brooklyn?
Go ahead.
Brooklyn? I say stop going in these business. Don't give them another penny. Hey, rise, black man, and do something for self.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir, brother. You know, we attempt to enlighten our community. We want our people to see, we have to love ourselves. In order, I have a problem with us doing business with people who have no respect for our community, don't love us. And if I love myself, I'm not going to do any business with these people. So we have to really learn to love ourselves and to make sure that we do not support any business that doesn't have love, respect for our community. But thanks for your call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Were you calling from a quick question or comment? Go ahead, next caller. You on the air?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You on the air? Quick question or comment. Where you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from the Bronx, New York.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to give y'all a shout out. Y'all doing a good job.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Taylor, and I like all my brothers to Google African American flag 125th Street. I'm the one with the Obama shirt on doing the talking. African American flag 125th Street. Thank you. Y'all doing a good job, brother.
You're not the one who gave me the map of Africa at Malcolm X's birthday, are you?
The flag?
No, a map of Africa. You in a round circle in a leather pouch. Somebody from one of the merchants on 125th Street gave that to me at Malcolm X's burial site on his birthday.
I guess so. I guess so because I was giving out a lot of flags. The new African American flag.
No, it wasn't true. It wasn't true.
Okay, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for your call, brother.
Okay.
We coming down to the end. So another caller, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
This is Veronica Nicky.
Okay, go ahead, sister.
Well, there's the UNIA. There is a corporation. There is a grocery store. And I made sure I gave out the flyers.
Give the address.
The address is 13205 Merrick Boulevard in Queens, New York. FACA is a black restaurant supply place as well as a grocery store. And there's also G2YUT's 1958 Fulton Street where you can get groceries for $30. And we should support black businesses. And we put up all the black businesses that do the same things the Koreans do. Mm-hmm. We just have to support our businesses.
Okay, and it's safe to say that the UNIA, that's Marcus Garvey's organization, that's now been reinstalled, and they have a store that they want black people to shop in. Is that correct?
I think she hung up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the call and thank you for the information. I think we have time for maybe one more caller. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Yeah, this is a question for Mike.
Yeah, where you calling
I
from?
just want to ask the name of the black leader who had called Marcus Garvey a dangerous man.
W.E.B. Du Bois.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay. All right, that was a quick one. Next one. This is the last caller. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from? Quick question or comment?
Hello, gentlemen. This is the teacher from Westchester.
Okay, how you doing, sister?
Good.
Go ahead.
Okay, really quick. I have proctored those exams where you see nothing basically but Asian, white, a few of us sprinkled in between. A lot of the programs are not geared to us because principals don't look for them. That's the problem. I'm telling you right now. They go into Riverdale and white areas in Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan, but principals don't look for them, and those programs don't look for us. So parents have to be vocal. Go to your district offices, go to the libraries, get on the computer, and stop looking at TV shows and find out how you can get your kids tested so they can succeed in life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your call. All right, I think we have one more call. Go ahead, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. This will be the last call. Go ahead.
Veronica Nikki, I was cut off.
Okay.
I also wanted to mention I'm sitting in on skinhead Kirk Usul that murdered Uriah Ben Yehuda, and they're actually contemplating manslaughter 1. The court case will be September 6th. They're supposed to be doing the sentencing on the 20th floor, Part 33.
Okay.
In Brooklyn Supreme Court.
All right, good. Okay, all right.
We must support our community.
Thank you for the information. All right, we're going to have our closing comments. Noel?
All right, we'd like to thank all those who called in. We have one of the most informative communities in New York City. Thank you for your support, Little More. I love you. Lynn, Kitty Cat, family, peace.
Big Mike.
The stakes are high right now. I say race first, unapologetically. Black man, black woman, protect the black child. Accept your own and be yourself. And next week we'll have some alternatives to patronizing those that don't love us. Have some addresses of black salons that you can go to.
I'd like to, first of all, thank the Community Cop family for watching us and supporting us. And, you know, whenever we see you out in the community, you guys show us so much love. You know, the brother, the poet, brother, I saw you the other day driving by. You stopped me up in Harlem. Man, I appreciate the love, man, and you support us, and we love it. Harper family, I love you guys. I miss you guys. I'll see you soon. To the Leader family, the Graves family, we have to thank our producers, Sheila Berry, Veronica Kitt, Nat Wood, Baby, everybody that comes out and do so much work to get this program off the ground and to bring it to our community. And if you guys have any information or any suggestions that you want to give us, you let us know, and we'll definitely discuss some of the things that you want to talk about as well.
Yeah, just want to say, Father Lucas,